Hello and welcome to Gravitas Wins Conversations. 2 years back, I attended a workshop by Sampark and it changed my perspective about LinkedIn. I followed the tips that he gave in the workshop and I benefited immensely from them. Today, we are going to discuss how to use LinkedIn to grow your career, no matter whether you are a junior or a senior executive in the organization. I'm sure it is going to be extremely useful to you. Hello, Sampark. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, Joseph. It's an absolute pleasure being here.
You have such an inspiring life story, Sampak. I was reading through it as I was getting prepared for this conversation. From selling TVs in a small electronic workshop, you have come a long way. Can you share, from your own mouth, your story?
Joseph, I come from a small town called Jamshedpur, and uh, it was post 12th that I moved to Bombay, and I was a commerce student in 11th and 12th. So by default, a lot of people told me, commerce student, you should do CA. That's how I started my coaching for CA. But a few months into it, I realized, okay, this is not what I want to do all my life. I knew that if I sat through it, I would become a chartered accountant, but it was not going to be enjoyable. So I called back home. I dropped out of it. I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And that is where, while I was in my graduation, I was trying to do a little bit of part time jobs, earn a little extra buck on the side. And that's where I started selling TVs in an electronic store. So every morning I used to go to college, evening I used to be selling TVs. And that is where I got that whole kick of sales, marketing, interacting with customers, watching them and being able to convince them. And that's where I decided, okay, this is what seems to be what I enjoy. And that's where the whole MBA thing came in, and I felt, okay, this is what I want to do. So then I went in, did my MBA. 2010 came out. I was in the middle of that whole financial crisis, came out without a placement. So it was still a shaky stage there. Worked with a small organization for a year till 2011. And that's where I got my big break with Asian Paints. So I was with Asian Paints for close to 5 years, handled three different roles across their three major verticals. So I handled channel sales for them for a couple of years. Then I handled institutional sales for them. Then I was also looking after their services being there. So this was all across Calcutta, East Bengal. That belt was where my major stint in Asian Paints was there. Then 2015, I moved into the whole startup thing there. I moved to Ola, went into a hardcore marketing role. So everything from your alliances, your ATL, BTL, all the offers that you got, all the discounts that you got, all the contests that were there during that time was something that me and my team were running. Uh, Handled various markets during that stint, and was with Ola for 3 years. 2018, unlike a lot of people, I went back from marketing to sales, joined
Mhm.
Oyo. I was leading a 220 member team at Oyo. So all from the sales bit of corporate sales, travel agent sales, etc. So that was my corporate journey. Uh, but on the side, there was a passion where I was writing on LinkedIn. I've been writing on LinkedIn now for 6 years. 2016 approximately was the time where I started writing. Um, a lot of people started resonating with the content. It was never written for the audience. It was always written for myself initially. But then people started coming back. Okay, it's good. They were resonating with it till the time LinkedIn recognized it. So 2019, I won the LinkedIn Spotlight Award. So that was an award by LinkedIn recognizing the top 14 content creators on the platform. That's where I felt, okay, now that if LinkedIn says it, maybe it is good. So it was around that time where I started wondering, uh, should I look at, and I was enjoying the whole training, mentoring stuff there. 2019, I also won the top 100 marketing and sales professionals in the country. But then the whole COVID thing came in. I was leading events for Oyo at that time.
Mm, mm.
Hospitality went down, events went down. So somewhere down the line, most of us went on an unpaid leave. So I said, okay, now this is the time that I can experiment. I gave
Mm.
myself, so that's where I started this venture of mine, Sampark se Sampark. Gave myself 4 months. It went better than what I expected. Gave myself another 4 months. It went better than what I expected, and it's exactly 2 years now, and I'm still here. And I don't think I would be going back into my corporate journey. Uh, Hope so. I don't need to, but yes, that's my corporate journey followed by my entrepreneurial journey here.
It's a fantastic story, Sampark. I read through it, I listened to it. I said, we need to hear this. My audience should hear this. Thank you for sharing it. And what I'm also seeing is you kept on experimenting. Yes, your parents or the society said you need to go for CA. You went for CA, but then you didn't like it, came back. But you kept experimenting one thing or the other, and then here you are, well recognized by LinkedIn also. So, congrats for that as well.
So pleasure.
Uh, See, at that time, Twitter was also there. Was there any reason why you focused on LinkedIn and not on Twitter? Because a lot of people are building their followers on Twitter.
See, very frankly, I when I jumped into this, I never jumped into this with this whole personal branding thing. The whole
Hmm.
personal branding thing came in much later, where I realized, okay, people are recognizing me for this. So I went into LinkedIn with the very same objective that everybody does. Okay, I need to look for a job. So I went there, and I started writing and sharing casually, because very soon I realized, okay, why will somebody give me a job? So if I
Hmm.
write to Joseph and say, Joseph, give me a job, he does not know who I am. He does not know that there is a Sampark who exists. So there would be surely something that I need to do more before I go about asking people. And that's one thing that I tell a lot of my people on the training. It's not about playing a victim card on the platform. So started writing with that intention of, okay, maybe it helps me in my job, maybe etc. And somewhere it was more of a bug, or more of a drug, that I got stuck there. And uh, Twitter is something that now, considering that I've gone into this whole coaching business, I've now started teaching social media, now is something that started working on very late in this journey. That was the reason why I didn't go for Twitter. That was the
Hmm.
reason why I stuck onto LinkedIn. But I've been very, very fortunate that LinkedIn worked for me. I have met very, very awesome people like yourself as well, where I trust me, it works. There are so many people who say LinkedIn does not work. People only give gyan. People don't help. Uh, what I tell people is that if you go with the intention of taking, you will not get anything. But if you go
Hmm.
with the intention of giving, then you get, then you don't need to take. It's a strong wordplay here. But when you go with that whole non transactional or non monetary thought process, it will work. But if you start having every conversation with this, Array, what is in it for me? Then it's a very transactional relationship that works out. So I think that's what people need to realize. And I think that's what works on the platform as well.
You have already shared two of the things. You wrote casually. That's one. It was not anything formal, but very casual. That's one. Two, you said you need to go with the sense of giving and not really taking. There is another guest. He said, if you want to play in the creator economy, then you need to have the feeling of generosity.
Right.
You need to give. Only when you give, you will be able to. The other benefits will come. So I resonate with what you are talking about. Now, so you have gone into the coaching and you have coached quite a lot of people. Any story that stands out, whether it be entrepreneur story, somebody started a startup and then thrived because of that, or because they got a career boost. Anything that you can share?
So, see, there have been a lot of bits and pieces story. I'll give you a few examples. One, if I talk from a reach perspective, if I tell you my maximum reach on the platform, for one post was a 1.2 million, which is a 12 lakh kind of attraction. And I was very, very proud of the whole fact. Um, the day where that broke, and one of my students breached that number, he finished that post on a 3.5 million views. That one post, that was 35 lakhs. And that's where, and obviously, when he did my session, he was somewhere around 4,000, 5,000 followers. Today he's up somewhere around 35, 40,000 himself. So that's from the creation bit of it. There have been multiple cases where people have come to me saying, and I give this example in my sessions as well, where people have got jobs from the platform without giving interviews. So
Hmm.
the people have sat through my sessions. I've given this example, and somebody came back 2 months later and said, "Something this happened with me as well."
Hmm.
Why is that so? Because when he got that so-called offer from somebody, he said, "Sir, what about the interview?" He said, "In a 15-minute interview, you can fake. But I've been reading your content for the last 365 days. You can't fake your mindset for a year. So I already understand your mindset. Okay, we might have a discussion on what the role might be, what you need to deliver, but I don't have a doubt on who you are, your knowledge, etc." So you mentioned about generosity. Okay, now, and I just switch that question back to where you came from rather than an example is, if I go there with saying, buy my service, buy my coaching, buy my, nobody's going to buy it, because then people realize what I'm doing. But if I go there talking about sharing my knowledge on marketing, sharing my knowledge on sales, for me that generates into business, because a Joseph recognizes, okay, this guy knows his stuff. For a corporate professional, that converts into jobs, because the
Hmm.
reader, who might be a recruiter, who might be an employer, who knows, okay, this guy's talking so much about marketing, he's writing so much, he knows his stuff. So that was where, so this guy started creating content, and he got job offers out of it. So that's, so there are two different examples there where people have got jobs across. Plus the whole power of networking. If I
Hmm.
share my example as well, today I get at least 100 leads out of LinkedIn organically without spending a single
Hmm.
rupee. I spend my time on creating the content. Yes, that time is money, I understand, but literally I don't have to spend anything. So there are numerous examples from a business perspective. There are numerous examples from jobs perspective. There are numerous examples from a content creator perspective, that this platform is something which can be a gold mine for a lot of us.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. Without LinkedIn, I wouldn't be meeting you and having this particular conversation. We don't know each other, right?
Absolutely.
So it has been fantastic platform so far, Sampak. Now, you already talked about creating content, and you said in an informal content is what does really well. Uh, can we go a little deeper in that, in the sense that, like, say for example, a lot of times what happens, I am coming from a tech industry, software industry, we know how to write code, we don't know how to write any of these informal things that you're talking about. So how can I get started? What kind of content can I share on LinkedIn?
See, so it need not be only informal. It always has to be a balance, because when
Hmm.
you're talking about informal content, that might get you the reach. But when you want to build yourself as a thought leader, you need to show your technical knowledge as well. So it always
Hmm.
has to be a mix. Now, there are a couple of mistakes where technical people, when if you talk from a technical people or people who come from a niche industry, I tell people, don't get caught in this whole rut of likes, views, etc. Yes, I might have thrown in examples of 1.2 million views, 3.5 million views, but a Joseph might come back and say, Sampark, I don't need that mass reach. My industry
Hmm.
is small, my industry is limited. I need to reach my certain audience that is there. I don't want virality. It's absolutely okay. Each of us should be sure on what we are here for. Today, a Sampark might need mass reach, a Joseph might not. So first you need to be very clear of your objective, your niche, who your target audience is, and then you start creating content out of it. Very simple. Your industry, if I tell you write 10 tips and write 10 lines on each, you can.
Hmm.
If those 10 tips, if you post twice a week, your 5 weeks content is ready.
Hmm.
So if you are an expert in your industry, you can write. Now you will say, Sampar, everybody's written on it. Most people are writing. What's new? The fact is, 98% people don't write on the platform. Only
Hmm.
2%
Yeah.
do. So the very fact you start writing, you've beaten 98% of your competition. And
Hmm.
yes, the golden rules will remain the same. How you put it is going to be making the difference. So the bottom line is, stop procrastinating, stop overthinking.
Hmm.
People say,
Hmm.
Arey, what will I put about? What will people think? What if I make a fool of myself? Nobody has time. Everybody's worried about themselves. So it's very important to take that plunge. And once you've taken that plunge, it's very important to stay consistent. I don't call
Hmm.
myself a very good writer. My wife laughs at my posts sometimes. She said, I don't absolutely understand why people like your posts. But the only thing which I credit to being my success story on LinkedIn is consistency. I have stuck to it
Hmm.
for 6 years. There are people who write absolutely lovely posts. Some people whom I admire, and 3 4 months later they're gone. They've got a job. End of story. They've got what they came here
Mm.
for. End of story. But the fact is, if you're building your brand, it is not a one-time thing.
Mm.
It's always, when I mentioned that it's about giving and not taking. If you come in desperate times, you will only come to take. So
True.
problem is, people come here when they have lost a job, when they need a job, when they're in, or hey, I need to do it right now. Then you will be forced to be desperate. But you come here when everything is good, so that God forbid, a year later, 2 years later, something goes wrong. You have that security net to fall back on. And
Mm.
yes, it is. It sounds cliche. I know it sounds gyan, but I have lived every bit of what I'm saying. So when I moved out, I know of a lot of people who moved out and started things of their own. A lot of them went back because it's
Mm.
very difficult to become an entrepreneur and stick to it. Because you can go into consulting, you can go into coaching, but it's a very different ballgame. Lead
True.
generation is the biggest pain point, because all our lives we are known by the brands we work for. Oh, he's the head of
Mm.
sales at Oyo, or he heads marketing at Ola. But do people know Sampark? So if you ask people who are you, the first thing they say, I work at this company.
Mm.
While the so I think COVID has proven that job security is a myth.
Absolutely.
So the only brand which you need to genuinely work on is your name, and I think that's where can be a transformational journey for everybody.
Wonderful. So you already talked about this content. I've seen some people post once a week, sometimes once a day. There are people who post every hour. Are there any time slots that you would recommend? What's a good practice?
So if you talk from a frequency perspective, see, it's not the frequency, it's how the longevity of your posts. So
Mm.
it's not about going full blast, one post for 30 days and then you're out of content. If you go to the gym for 30 days non-stop, it does not give you results. You go to gym twice a week, but you go for a year, it will give you results. So
Absolutely.
you have to be at your comfort level. Somebody like me who breathes LinkedIn, whose business runs on LinkedIn, for me, it's one post a day. For a lot of clients that I work with, because there are a lot of senior leaders whom I work very closely in running their show on the platform, for them, it's two posts a week. I tell people you can
Mm.
start with once a week as well, but ensure that once a week means do it for a year. You, because
Mm.
it's not, you will not get results if you go fast. As again, a cliche statement, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So
Mm.
run slow but run long. That's the secret there. And otherwise, then post generally weekdays mornings is what works.
Okay. Okay. So now let's say, for example, there are I'm a junior level person who has joined. I'm straight out of college. Probably I have up to 3 4 years of experience. What benefit can LinkedIn give me?
See, when somebody like me who passed out 12 15 years back, we never had the chance to learn from somebody who's very senior. Yes,
Mm.
LinkedIn still was there, but it was very small at that time. Today, at a 22, 22 year old, you have the chance to learn, you have the chance to network, you have the chance to connect. For a lot of us, and you being fairly experienced in the industry, people realize very late in their careers, at least another 5 6 years, that you don't get jobs on Naukri.com. Your majority jobs are your ex bosses, your contacts, your referrals. So it's the faster you start working on this, the better it is. And today, for us, when we started our career, who knew you? Your industry knew you. Your company knew who you were. But a platform like LinkedIn is, you. The world is open. There is no geographical boundary. There's no restriction. You can connect directly with somebody who's very senior through your content. You can create a brand for yourself, and that's how it works. So when you say investments are about the early you start, your personal branding is also how early you start. So
Okay.
I people again, youngsters don't realize it, but the faster you get onto the bandwagon, the better it is for you.
Absolutely right. Right. See, you talked about networking. And again, I'm talking from a software industry perspective, or probably my own questions as well, is that I can write. Probably I got what you said, so I started writing, and people are connecting with me. I don't know what to do after that. After somebody has sent me a request, that's it. I leave it, or do I have to follow up? How do I follow up? What should I tell them? I have absolutely no idea. What should I do?
See, what I tell a lot of people is LinkedIn is not about the number of connections you have. Some people
Hmm.
in their headline have 15,000 connections, 20,000 connections. What will you do of those 20,000 connections? What
Hmm.
matters is how many of those connections know you. How many
Hmm.
of the connections do you know? Because end of the day, if you are talking about business generation or jobs, okay, I speak to you, we have a very casual conversation. You might not have a job for me, but tomorrow when you are talking to someone else, then there is a brand recall of me. So it's about building those conversations. I
Hmm.
understand you can't build conversations with everybody there. So point is, when you connect with someone, drop them a casual, hope you're doing well, thanks for connecting. Try building a conversation. When the person resonates, you realize, is this guy interested in talking, not so what I tell people is that out of a platform like LinkedIn, even if you're able to do one Zoom call a week or one phone call a week, you never know where that which jackpot will open. So
Hmm.
I know I have met over the years, I've met over hundreds of people out of the LinkedIn platform, even physical meetings. So we've caught
Hmm.
up over a cup of coffee. I genuinely loved your content. Would love to have a conversation. There was somebody I spoke to this morning. He messaged me saying, "Sampark, we've been connected on LinkedIn for a year, but we've never had a chance to talk. Would you be open to a phone call?" And we genuinely had a conversation for 15-20 minutes. Yes, situations might get awkward sometimes. It may not turn out the way it is, but every conversation that you have in your world will not be a jackpot. But you never know which is that one jackpot that will work. I'll give you an example. There was somebody that I met for a cup of coffee a couple of years back. While I was discussing with the person there, he mentioned that there's somebody that I should interact with, because now that we've had a conversation, she said, "Okay, there's another friend of mine whom I met on LinkedIn. You'll surely resonate with him." I ended up meeting that gentleman. Then I did one session for his group of people. In that group, there was somebody who was based out of Dubai. He invited me for a session in Dubai. From that session, then I did a session in Qatar. I did a session for the complete Middle East. I ended up doing 5 sessions across Middle East from that bit there. I got consultancies out of US, Canada, Morocco, Spain, Bahrain, Qatar, Singapore, Australia. I generated lakhs of business all originating from that one cup of coffee. So, so
Fantastic.
that's so that's those are the lovely stories which come out. And just drop in a compliment to someone, just comment on somebody's post. It's all about building those conversations. It's not about the profile. A lot of people get stuck. I have a profile, but it's like having your website with absolutely no traffic on it. It's
Hmm.
your work to get traffic onto that platform.
Yeah. And as I was telling you before we started this recording, I started following it up. I will drop into people's inbox and say, hey, would you like to have a conversation? And most of the people will respond. And almost every week, I've been having at least one call with somebody, and I learn a lot from them.
Right.
So it has been absolutely fantastic to follow that particular thing. Sampak, okay, so I have connected in all of these things that I can do. All of them work on the free version of LinkedIn, or should I be a premium version only? Then all of this will work.
See, it depends on each individual, because the premium is not from an Indian context, it's not very affordable. It is a little costly. So, having a premium or not having a premium does not impact your visibility. So, you still get
Okay.
that level of traction. With premium, you get a certain extra features that are there, which each of us need to decide, is it worth the ROI? So if you're looking from a sales perspective, there are people who say my product is worth 2 lakhs. If I can sell even one in the year, I have my ROI on that. But there is somebody who says my product is 500 rupees, but I am not being able to sell as much out of it. So what I tell people is, one, do not go for the premium immediately. First, get your
Hmm.
hands onto the platform, get used to the consistency and get yourself, get the hang of it. And once you've done that, use the trial for yourself. Then understand, does it work for you, and then take a call. Why do I say
Mm.
don't take a trial initially? Because you yourself are trying to figure out the platform. So use it once you are comfortable, so that you can use the trial well, and then you can decide for yourself, is premium required or not. But if you're saying, okay, will I get increased visibility because of premium? No, that's not a major part of it. Your content, your quality, and your consistency depends there.
Okay, thanks for that. Now, okay, so we talked about a junior level candidate. I completely get the point that you are talking about. But let's say, for example, I'm 50 years old. I have had my career. I'm doing well, and I'm looking forward towards my end of my career. Why would I be on LinkedIn? What benefit does LinkedIn give me?
See, for somebody who's very senior, once you're around 50, you are moving towards your financial freedom. You want to work as per your terms. You don't want to get into that whole job thing. So, a lot of people want to move into consulting, taking those side gigs, building that side hustle, wanting to move into academics, etc. So, that's again something that you can do, because you've been in the industry for 20 years. The industry knows you, but do the masses know you? And I think that's where, yes, I'm not 50-year-old, but when I started doing my guest lectures, etc., and I started posting about it, and I started sharing, I started getting calls for uh, more sessions and more trainings and more consulting, etc. So for them, you come, you create your content, you share your experiences over the years, and it gives you that slow transformation from maybe a full-time thing into something which you do as per your own convenience. Because a lot of people don't want to go from a full income to a retirement of sitting at home. They
Mm,
don't know how to make that transition. This is a good thing, that in your latter years you build that perception about yourself. So even if you want to go into giving sessions or doing courses, or becoming a teacher or whatever, or you want to just take up advisory roles or consulting roles, I think that's again is something that you can look at.
okay, and
Plus,
there is
sorry,
always
sorry. Now that I speak to
yeah,
you, there is another thing, is when you are preparing for senior roles, it is not only about the kind of work that you're doing. It's also about the people person that you are, your knowledge, your expertise. It's about building that thought leadership. It's about building that credibility. So if you are preparing for that CXO role or that VP role today, for senior hires, it's not only your work, it's also your digital footprint. What How as a leader are you? So this again becomes, so even if you want to stick in the corporate genre, but you're preparing for your top notch roles, this is a good place to come and show that as well.
yeah. I think one of the things that I hear consistently in our conversation is do things before you need them.
Absolutely.
So you also did that even when you were in the corporate one. You started working in LinkedIn. You started writing in LinkedIn, and then that gave you the benefit when it was absolutely needed.
Absolutely.
And I see that as a common thread across many of the answers that you have given.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I totally agree to that, because then again, as I said, don't come here when you're desperate. Come here
Mm,
well in advance, so that, because building a brand takes time. It is not an overnight thing. If you're writing for 1 month, who knows you? For to
mm.
build credibility, it takes time, and that's where you need to come here before you genuinely need it.
Okay. So how long does it take? So I understand you cannot expect a short-term result, but does it take a month, two? Again, let's say for example, every week, every day, one post I'm posting. How long does it take even to get some kind of a result, some kind of attraction? How long does it take?
See, I will not give you exact number, but yes, a few months is what you need, because it's not only about external stakeholders, it's also about internal stakeholders. Your organization, people start recognizing you, people within the organization, because generally with your bosses, with your seniors, you're talking on reviews, you're talking on targets. But where does your boss know that you know stuff beyond what you are
Mm,
thinking on the larger picture? So it's not only about showcasing to the world outside. I know in Oyo, a lot of my colleagues, even up to the as high in the leadership as you can go, people recognized me for my content on LinkedIn. I remember walking into sales pitches, VP level sales pitches for clients, and he said, I recognize Sampark se Sampark. So you can understand that my conversation absolutely transformed there. So, uh,
Absolutely.
so few months into it, you will start realizing people are noticing, and then it is
Hmm.
a game of momentum. The longer you stay, the faster it moves.
Hmm. I
So,
understand, Sampark, that you cannot really go by likes and comments and so on and so forth. But when you're starting and when you really don't get any likes, you lose that momentum, you lose that kind of an enthusiasm. So, what do you recommend in your program?
see, if you go back and if you somebody does take that pain of scrolling down 2000 posts, you will realize that that is exactly where I started. Now, what kept me going was I was never writing for the audience. Now, suppose
Hmm.
I am down, okay, I am writing to motivate myself. So that 20 minutes of when I'm researching on what to write, I'm reading so much of good stuff that my own motivation used to come up. So
Hmm.
if you start going with that intention of saying, I know it's absolutely human to say, ki, are people liking it or not? But the game to it is that stick to it. That is why only a few people are able to succeed. Most are not because most give up. So you will have to be self motivated. You will have to keep pushing yourself. You like it or not, that okay, likes are not coming. You will have to motivate yourself. That's the only
Okay.
answer to it.
So when you're talking about this, the related question to that is, would you want to write natively on the platform, or would you be okay to share via scheduling tools, like say for example Buffer or anything?
Hmm.
Is that okay? What's your recommendation on that?
Very frankly, I do not recommend any tools for LinkedIn. Neither do I use it for myself, neither do I use it for my clients, neither do I use it for any of my students. Because again, most of these tools are not recognized by LinkedIn themselves. So while there are a lot of people out there who teach you tools and growth hacking and data scraping and stuff like that, it's not approved by LinkedIn. So anytime if LinkedIn pulls the plug, your account's gone. And there
Hmm.
are there are so many of my people who've come to me and saying, Sampan, this is what I'm in trouble here. So don't risk it. If you have to write content, you don't want to write it on the platform, write it in your notes, write it on a Word doc, etc. If people want to create content in advance, keep it there, and you can just copy paste and post. uh, because again, tools is a slight risky feature. Till the time LinkedIn comes and says, okay, this is the tool that I approve of, I would recommend people not to do so.
Okay, wonderful. We talked quite a bit about your coaching program. Can you tell me what you coach, especially for individuals, right? Not B2B, not for corporates,
Hmm.
but for individuals. What's the coaching program that you give from a LinkedIn perspective, and how can people reach out to you on that?
Okay. So for LinkedIn, then I have two ways that I work. Actually, three ways that I work with people. One, where people, if they're looking for a online course, which is a pre-recorded course that I have, which is on my website. It's a 3 hour module where you can go, you can consume it at your convenience, at your pace. But that's a pre-recorded thing. So you can go to my website, you can purchase it there. Now there is somebody who comes and says, Sampark, I want to have a live one-on-one with you. I want a customized thing for my objective. Then I have a 30-day mentoring live thing there, where over the 1 month I do 3 sessions, uh, split across. So one on the profile, one on the content, one on the networking bit, and that's spread across where, like this conversation, it's a one-on-one conversation where we do it. The third part of it is where senior leaders, when I started doing this consulting, start came back to me and said, Sampark, I can't do this. I understand it requires a lot of effort. Can you help me do it? So now I have a team at the back end also who works with me for a lot of these senior leaders, hand holding them in running the show on the platform as well. People can go to my website, sampark.com. Uh, if they want the pre-recorded thing, they can connect there. If they want the one-on-one thing, they can reach out to me, which is again on my email, sampark@gmail.com. And I would be very, very happy to guide them in whichever way. And yes, they can obviously reach out to me on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
That's the fastest way to reach me.
Absolutely. And what I have also seen is, you have quite a lot of connection, you have quite a lot of schedule, but when I left a comment on LinkedIn, you responded back a couple of days later. So and that too, you were touring across Rajasthan or something, you
Right.
still replied back. I really appreciate that, Sampak. It
See,
was really good.
I'll tell you that that's again a difference. The fact that you remember it, because
Hmm.
when you're talking about building a brand, when you're talking about building a connection, small things such as this make a difference. Because when for somebody like who's posting, he does not expect a response. But then I try as consciously as possible to respond to as many comments, because that is where somebody who's commenting on it also feels valued. He may then remember, okay, at least somebody responded. So it's building up that conversation, it's building up that mutual respect, it's about building that brand that you say, and it's about building that network. Because it's not, again I come back to that, it's not about likes and comments, it's about the relationships that you build, it's about the conversations that you have, and that's where it boils down to.
I think that's the right time to end this conversation, Sampak. As you rightly said, it's about relation and conversations. And thank you so much for teaching in the last half hour, Sampak.
Pleasure, thank you so much, Joseph, for having me.
Thank you for listening to our conversation. If you liked it, can you please share it at least with one of the friends? Have a life of wins.